The phone rang. I stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the call button. It was her, of course. The one person who had no right to exist in my life anymore. Why? I asked myself, voice barely a whisper. I pressed decline. Her message pinged through seconds later. I can't believe you would do this to us. The words floated in the silence, settling like dust on a table that had been untouched for years. Every letter, every syllable, a weight I couldn't shake off. How did it come to this? How had I been blind? I had been the good son-in-law, the one who supported her parents, paid their mortgage, covered the bills, while she and her siblings lived in luxury. I had kept the peace, never asking for anything in return. But now she was asking for more. I opened her message, read it again. The words twisted. You owe us. She deserves nice things. How many times had I heard that? How many times had I stood silent, watching them take from me, knowing they weren't grateful, only entitled? The phone rang again. This time I answered. You're wrong, I said, voice colder than I felt. You don't deserve a damn thing. The silence between us was unbearable. She knew the truth now, and so did I. The truth had been building quietly for years, like a storm on the horizon. I was the fool who'd kept paying, who'd kept believing that this was the right thing to do. 1,000 little whispers in the back of my mind that I ignored, pushed aside. I had wanted to believe my wife's smiles, her sweet words, her promises that it would all be worth it in the end. But then one night, I saw the look in her eyes as she glanced at me over dinner. Distant, calculating. It was the same look I had seen in her siblings' faces when they'd come to me for help. I couldn't ignore it anymore. A conversation, a quiet confession from her brother. Don't tell her, but I don't think he knows she's been spending the money on her shopping sprees, not the house. My world shifted. That whisper, small but venomous, became a sharp truth. I'd been the one feeding their greed, paying for their luxuries, while I was barely scraping by, making sacrifices. But what had they sacrificed? I began watching. It was subtle at first. A few receipts that didn't add up, a trip to Paris, the luxury bags, the way they casually mentioned their vacation house, a place I'd never even been invited to. The phone records? 2 calls. That's all it took. Late-night calls, whispered conversations. I tracked her movements, the shifts in her behavior, the offhand comments. There was no more pretending that this was all an accident, that I was overreacting. But I had to be sure, so I took the next step, a DNA test. The results came back. She wasn't mine. I felt nothing when I saw the report. Not anger, not relief, just numbness. The storm had hit, and I was left standing in the rain. The truth wasn't a revelation anymore. It was just a fact. The cracks in my foundation had deepened into a chasm. But I didn't show it. I simply smiled when I handed her the paper. Look familiar? I asked, the coldness in my voice almost soothing. Her face drained of color. I don't understand. I stayed silent. Let her figure it out. I gave her the papers, the same way you hand over a contract you've signed, with no more emotion than you would show when handing over an envelope. She cried, of course, but it didn't matter. Her tears were the final betrayal. "You've known this whole time, haven't you?" she asked, voice trembling. "Does it matter now?" I asked, uncaring. The silence that followed was loud, deafening. Her face, when she finally understood, was not one of guilt, but of shock. She thought I was a fool, thought I'd never catch on, but I had. And now there was nothing left but the truth between us, a truth neither of us could escape. I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I walked away, but not before I made one final move. Her family? Gone. I cut them off, each and every one of them. The mortgage payments? Stopped. The wedding for her sister? I laughed when they asked for $50K. I told them I'd never lift a finger for them again. The house? I bought it, the one I had always dreamed of. And their faces when the foreclosure notice came? Priceless. They thought I was a man who could be used, who could be taken advantage of. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I've moved on. They never will. In the end, I took control of everything I'd given away. And when I walk into my new home, I know one thing for sure. I'll never be their fool again. They can't hurt me anymore, because I've learned the most brutal lesson of all. It's not about revenge. It's about power. And I have it now.